here's kind of what we're going to be doing together over the next sort of few months together. So what we're going to be spending this first month together really on is kind of the first phase of this journey. Now, one of the biggest things I've learned about helping people write and publish books is that most people think like you start on day one and you just like sit there and you write. And the truth is that's actually the wrong way to start. The right way to start is with a question. And I think for all of you guys that I chatted with, most of you have sort of that early question in mind, like what do I think that I want to explore and discover? And so we're going to spend this first month together really almost doing no writing. We're just going to start to map out how would we start to answer those questions or those theories. And so that's what we call the Get Smart phase. It's going to be a series of research questions you're going to go out to. You're going to do fun things like listen to more podcasts or sort of YouTube videos. You're going to do things like starting to have conversations with people. But at the core of it all is I want you to go out with the idea of how do I learn some questions and some answers that I'm interested in there. And so we're going to spend the first month doing that. And that's really where we are at this point. The goal of this kind of first month together really is to help you guys drive the content that's going to make your book. Now, the challenge that most people think about when they write a book is this. They think like, I've got to write about all the knowledge that I had already. So you come into this one, and I think many of you, when we had these first calls, were like, well, I want to write about something I already know. Now, the best authors write about something they're curious about, not what they know already. So that's what we're going to be doing is I want you to go out and learn and discover all the stuff you're going to put in the book, not necessarily what you already know. So we're going to basically be spending our time mostly on primary interviews and secondary interviews a little bit. The idea behind these sorts of interview content is that we use this to write. We use this information that we have to help us write the stories we want and ultimately to kind of pull together the knowledge that we have that makes this. So tonight we're going to focus a little bit on the idea of primary interviews. We'll talk a little bit about that one. What does that mean? How does it work? And then secondarily, we're going to talk a little bit more about this concept called the secondary interview. Because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, like this is just a semester, how can I possibly gain enough knowledge? I'll show you how we'll pull together plenty of knowledge that all of you will write something you're proud of and you're excited about. And the biggest piece of advice I can give you is don't worry exactly what your book's about until about mid-November, right? Which sounds ridiculous, right? We're going through a whole semester and I'm not going to know what my book's about exactly until November. Well, that's the real secret here. The secret behind all of this is I want you to go from a place of curiosity rather than knowledge. I'll say that again. I want you to come from a place of curiosity rather than knowledge to learn what it is. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about logistics for a few minutes here together in some ways. And remember, think of this a lot more like a seminar-style class that you've ever done this before. It is going to be one of those things that the goal of the class is to kind of have these discussions. We'll break into small groups a little bit tonight. So that'll be some of the logistics. Then we'll start to talk about some of the magic here. We're going to talk about how do you actually start to talk about your book already. Hey, come on in. How do you actually talk about your book already? How do you have those conversations when people said, hey, what's your book about? And you're like, well, it's sort of, I don't know yet. So we're going to help have that conversation because you're going to start to have it. When you tell people like, so what are you doing this semester? You're like, well, I'm writing a book. So we'll talk about how to do that a little bit better. Then we're going to talk about the power of stories and why stories are so important to us writing books. And then we'll do kind of two exercises tonight. The first one is on friendlies, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And the second one is on how do we start to do secondary interviews, right? So that's kind of the logistics here. We're not going to spend a lot of time tonight like having you guys sort of share your book topics yet because most of you are still evolving a little bit. But next week we'll start to talk about where you're seeing your book topic go. We'll start to do those things. So tonight is going to be mostly about you and your book in those ways.